So today we're going to talk about going from renting to homeowning. It's a perfect combination because we have Karina here who is a renter.
I am a renter.
With a lot of questions.
Yes.
And I've somewhat been prepped on these questions, but I think it'll be fun to kind of chat through like some of the questions that are going on as you're thinking about getting into the home buying process. So with no further ado, what you got?
So first question would be, why is homeowning better than renting? If it's better than renting, which I assume it is, but why is it better? I
would never say blanket statement that it's true for everybody, right? Everybody's individual circumstances are different. There's different opinions out there. I know some very high net worth people that believe in, renting and investing their money in other things. But for the bulk, for most of us, homeowning is without a question a better option. One thing, just to kind of put some numbers to this comes out of last year of 2021. The average net worth of a homeowner was $300,000. The average net worth of a renter is $8,000. Why is that? Why would that be the case?
Net worth?
Yeah.
I would assume because renting should be cheaper, but it's not. So
I think it comes down to a couple of things. One, when you are renting, you are subject to rental rates increasing very often because that is how they're going to go up. With taxes are going up, so the landlords are going to increase their rents. Cost of maintaining buildings are going up, so they're going to increase their rents. And so you're always going to be renting at market, right? When you buy once at the current market, and now you have a fixed payment for 30 years, theoretically, right? However long you were there, that is a fixed payment. The other thing there is it's almost a forced savings account, right? Because every time you're making your mortgage payment in opposition to making a rental payment, every time you're making that, some portion of that's going towards principal.
Right.
All the while, two other components are happening. You are having appreciation in most markets.
Right.
Again, we won't say things that happen forever and always, but in most markets, we're going to continue to see an average of about 5% over many, many years of appreciation. Now, last year in Orlando, we had about a 20% appreciation, right? Mm-hmm. So someone without doing anything additional who's owning versus renting is gaining that appreciation during that time, right? So that's one component. So if you were doing, and the other thing I think is most people live to their income level. Mm-hmm. So what that means is when you are budgeting, a certain percentage of your month is going towards renting, right? Towards your lease, and you budget and spend everything else. You give a little bit, you save a little bit. So if both groups of people do the same thing, and say over time your income is increasing over that same period of time, the person with a fixed payment is continuing to make that savings, that pay into that forced savings account of their home, right? Principal towards their payment.
Right.
Their income is increasing. They have the ability to potentially save more as a percentage of their income because they've got more of a gap, right? Versus the renter. So they do the exact same thing and both save. The ability for somebody to save more or put towards their 401k or whatever their opportunities are is certainly greater as a homeowner because of that fixed payment.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of components to why this would be the case. Certainly any statistic like this, you can slice and dice and make an argument that, maybe renters are younger on average or whatever. But if you took two people that were 25, one bought a house, one continued to rent over the next 5 years, in most cases, that net worth number is going to be higher for the person when they're 30 than the person that continued to rent. Make sense?
Yeah. So talking about cost, what are the cost differences? So, you talked about how you have the fixed rate for a mortgage, rent will probably go up, so that's one difference.
Mhm.
But in regards to tax, insurance, upkeep on the place, where do those differ?
Yeah, and that's certainly something that, is often not really considered. Now,
Mhm.
I think when you're renting, yes, the landlord is managing that work to be
Yeah.
done, right? They're having the pest control come out. They're having the lawn mowed and all
I
these
mowed
things.
my lawn in college.
You mowed your lawn in college.
Twice.
All right, good for you.
That's-
Oh, twice.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, a lot of those things, but are they just included in rent, or is rent increasing to cover a lot of those costs, right?
Yeah,
So I think you're still effectively paying for them,
yeah.
right? Just by way of rent.
Mhm.
And so when you're able to have a fixed cost of owning the home and then have these additional costs or duties, there's certainly there's certainly additional things to budget for
Right.
other than just your mortgage payment, right?
Mhm.
And with that being said, I mean, I think we see new homes cost different than buying old homes.
Mhm.
Old homes come with more repair requirements just based on the nature of it being a depreciated asset, right? If it's
Right.
a 100-year-old home, it's going to have more things that you've got to invest in and bring up to speed.
Mhm.
So you've got to take that into account when you're buying. But certainly you could find something that made it, a townhouse, right? Is almost like living in an apartment where all of these things are covered. It's paid for through your community fees. So we can find options depending on what your preferences are with the style of living,
Yeah,
the work you want to put it into it, what you want to be responsible for, et cetera.
right.
But you're right. I mean, there's a lot of things that you got to think about when you're buying.
Yep.
Lawn, pest control, that's interior and exterior pest control a lot of times, shrub care.
Interest.
You've got the ability, your insurance, your roof. There's risks with these things. Now, the risk is I'm going to have an expense that comes up that I've got to now write a big check for, right? The AC goes out. The roof is damaged during a hurricane. A lot of these things we can insure against, the major things we insure against, right? That's kind of we want to have catastrophic coverage in that regard so that we're not bankrupt
Mhm.
because a storm blew through and ruined my roof, right?
Yeah,
And so that's certainly something we can get coverage against by way of our insurance. But there's certainly things like generally, I mean, you could have a warranty that covers an AC, but an AC is something that could pop up and you have to write a $3,000 or $4,000 check.
yep.
But these are things generally that we can plan for,
Yeah.
right? So, and I think that's where people get in a lot of trouble. They get in a lot of trouble because they're not thinking ahead about things that they should budget for to
Mhm.
avoid issues and avoid pitfalls in the future. So and we can do it this way, right? Let's think about if we were to own an apartment complex that you were going to be a renter in. The apartment owners, they are budgeting for every AC because
Right,
they know that every AC is going to have to be replaced in the 10 to 15 year period.
right.
They know the roof's going to have to be replaced in a certain period. And so what they do, they create a separate account that they're writing a small check to every month for these replacement, reserved for replacement, right? And so as homeowners, we really should take that step and do that as well. It looks like another number and it's building and it's growing in an account, but when we need it, we can tap into it for those planned reserves. So.
Mhm. So when I pay for rent, I'm thinking of rent, what is it? Rent, utilities, and like internet.
Yeah.
So then say I'm planning for a home, I have my down payment, I have the mortgage. What are the other costs I need to consider?
Yeah, all these things we talked about. If you've got a yard, the yard.
Mhm.
If you've got,
I guess not necessarily yard, but like interest. Like on our website, we have, if you put this down payment
I see what you're
down,
saying.
yeah, this is going to be your monthly.
Right. So to break that down, I mean, your monthly payment is calculated based on what we call an amortization schedule. And an amortization schedule, in the simplest term, is a single payment that pays interest on any principal outstanding,
Okay.
but has a dedicated payoff period.
Mhm.
So as you pay down principal, so you start paying more interest than principal. As you start paying down principal, what happens is your interest goes down
Right.
because you have less outstanding principal. There becomes a time in an amortization schedule where those two cross and you're paying more towards principal quickly than you are interest.
Right.
And so if it's a 30-year mortgage, right, at year 30, your last payment makes everything outstanding zero and there'd be no interest due, right? And so that's calculated every time you take out a mortgage based on the term and the mortgage so your interest, your principal are calculated. Generally what we talk about is PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Principal, because these are fixed things that are going to be required.
Yeah.
And so when they're looking at your finances to say, hey, how much can you afford as a homeowner? These are the fixed things that they're factoring as a percentage of your income to say you can afford to put $2,000 a month towards, or whatever that number is based on income, right? PITI.
PITI, I need to write that one down.
Yeah.
So I'm a renter. I don't have a down payment, but I've heard of renting to own.
Okay.
Can you expand on that? How does that process work? I'm sure it's different.
It's definitely a thing. There's a lot of ways to structure it.
Yeah.
We don't see a lot of it. Effectively, what a rent to own or a lease to own or a lease with an option to purchase. These are a couple different scenarios that achieve somewhat of the same result. Renting to own would essentially be, I've got an agreement with an owner. I'm going to rent from them. Some of my payment is going towards the purchase.
Okay.
And then there becomes a time when I actually close, right? Or they effectively, maybe they hold a private note or something, right? You can do private loans if somebody owned a home outright. That's very, very uncommon. What I would say is more common is leasing with a right to purchase at some future date.
Okay.
Or a first right of refusal.
Does that mean you have to purchase?
No, you could opt out. Okay. But all of this would be negotiable, right? And the risk of doing this is if you were to say you wanted to buy something, we agreed, hey, you're going to pay $300,000 for this. You're going to be able to buy it a year from now. A lot of things can change in a year.
Yeah.
So generally, a seller is going to want some commitment level from you, generally, right? So I want you to put down a non-refundable deposit that says you're going to purchase it next December, right? Or whatever it is. If the market crashes, you don't want to purchase that for $300,000.
Yeah.
So you're going to walk away from your deposit, right? If it goes up dramatically, you're going to do everything you can to close on that house because you've now got equity. And that's why a lot of times, at least in the most recent 10 or 12 years, we haven't seen a lot of this because we've been in an appreciating market. So in an appreciating market, why would a seller be willing to commit to a today price for a future closing? You know, so yeah, I'd say those are very uncommon. The most common way we've done it, there's a group called Home Partners we've done a lot of closings with. They're great if you're not ready to purchase. Maybe you're still saving up for down payment. Maybe your credit is in the works to get repaired. But they actually come along because their whole goal is to own real estate and have rental income. And so they do this. They do a purchase. You are the tenant, a qualified tenant to come be a tenant for them. You choose the house. And then you're ultimately going to purchase it from them at a predetermined price at a future date that grows each year. So if you want to buy it next year, you can. If you want to buy it 5 years, you can. But the price is escalating on an agreed to schedule.
Right.
And so that's the most common way we've done this recently.
Right. I think I've even looked into that. Haven't applied yet, but I've looked into it.
Yeah.
So say I do have a down payment for a house and I'm ready to buy, or I'm not ready, but I do have a down payment. So I'm starting to look, when do you think is a good time to transition? Like, okay, rent's getting really high, not a lot of inventory. Maybe I should start looking. Is that the only aspect I should look at? Like rent's getting high. I have the money, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean,
I guess what are the next steps?
Yeah. So, I mean, a couple of things to think through. So like for you, let's talk about you specifically, right? Okay. You've got to determine, what does the next really probably 3 to 5 years look like?
Yeah.
Life could change in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
And so does it make sense to be a homeowner because there's costs of purchasing, right? I mean, you're going to have some costs just go out the window when you purchase. So if you were to buy today and sell in a year, it's probably not a good decision unless you just time it right and get a great buy and a great market run, right? No one, so it's easy to look back a year ago and say, I should have bought then, because then I would be, have this 20% equity growth position. That's easy to do, but I would say every personal finance decision is personal, right? So you've got to think, like, generally speaking, in general markets with, 5-6% appreciation, probably that 3-year mark is about where it starts to make sense. If you're going to be there shorter than that, you're paying a lot of money to buy. You're going to pay a lot of interest. You're not paying really down much on your principal at all. And so it may be a break-even scenario around that 3-year mark. That's not been true the last few years, but again, generally speaking, it would be. And so I think you just got to make that determination. Is this where I want to be? Do I know what my next 3 or 5 years look like? Otherwise, keep saving, keep putting it away, find a good place that allows you to be flexible and pivot. And that's ultimately been a lot of the millennial story, right? Has been, I want to be able to kind of be nimble, and if I want to take a new job in California, I can up and go. And, and so we've seen a lot of that. It probably will come to fruition where we see that impact, in their mid-30s, right? Kind of where I am now, where they haven't had that 10 years of home ownership building wealth. I don't think there's a right or wrong. Again, there's other ways to build net worth, and stock away some cash and save. But I think it's worth getting, if you're in that position, getting with somebody and having a conversation around personal finance. Hey, how can I still be nimble and still, be thinking in a short-term scenario, but still be putting some money away and saving and growing.
Right. So what is a real estate agent's involvement with a renter? Is there involvement?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of a renter being preparing to purchase.
Yeah, prepared to purchase. Say you had a buyer and they got scared and they said, actually, I just want to rent. How are you there for that?
Yeah, so, for the big question.
Both questions.
Really. So first question, I mean, if you're in a rental situation, you want to talk about this in a deeper context for your particular situation, let's do that.
I guess it's like a buyer's meeting.
Yeah, we would have a sit-down buyer's meeting. We would talk through the process. We would connect you with one of our lenders. All these things are preparing you to be prepared to go into the buying side of the market. I love when we have a runway. So if you've got 8 months left on your lease, don't think that's way too early to have a conversation. Actually, it's not that early, because if we back down from closing, right, you got, let's say 45 to 60 days. We'll do 60 days roughly. So that's 2 months. And then we need really, and depending on the market, a few months to find something, another month to really get prepared, get your finances together, connect with a lender. I mean, we could be talking needing 5 months for this process through and through. Now, we have people that say, I'm coming and I got to be in a house next month. That scares the daylights out of me, because what I don't want is somebody to have to make a rush decision and not be able to get what they want. But so if you're 8 months out or something like that, let's talk. The other thing to think through, I'll come back to the other question, but the other thing to think through is another key difference in renting versus owning. Renting, you're paying your rent for the month to come, right? So if we're almost to April, so you're going to make a rent payment April 1st, and it's for April, correct? When you're making a mortgage payment, you're making payments in arrears, meaning you're paying for the month previously. It doesn't make much of a difference to you except for when you're buying. And here's where it makes sense. When you're preparing to close, we can find ourselves the ability to have either overlap in still having a rental a lease in place, and closing on a house to make your transition as easy as possible. So here's how we would do that. So if it's April and you make an April payment and I close on a house today, the 30th, I am paying interest through the end of the month. So I'm paying another day of interest at closing. And then I'm going to skip April. And then I'm going to make up my first mortgage payment is going to be in May, right? So if my last rental payment was April 1st and my first mortgage payment is May, I never have double payments, although I've had both properties at the same time. Now, if we wait and we close April 1st, okay, we make our rental payment April 1st. We close April 1st, paying our interest at closing through April. We're actually going to skip another month and make our first payment on the mortgage in June. So we could actually have a month without a payment, theoretically, right? Based on timing our closing appropriately. So it's another thing when you're thinking transition, that if we can really play our cards right and time our closings accordingly, we can make it a really smooth transition.
Yeah.
Because what you always want is when you buy something, the ability to close, take your time. If you want to go paint, if you want to change carpets, right? Whatever you want to do, be able to do it before all your boxes are sitting on the carpets.
Yeah.
It makes it a little harder to change carpets.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the other question? The other question was, can we help with rentals?
Yes.
We work with some great property managers. That's most commonly the direction we would push you. The rental market is a challenge. So if you're watching this and you are a renter and you're continuing to rent,
I understand.
It's a challenge. So you've got your run-of-the-mill apartment complexes that market on apartments.com and some other places.
Zillow.
You've got your property manager managed properties. You know, a lot of times single-family homes, townhomes. They're individually owned properties managed by someone else professionally. They put them on our MLS. They put them on Zillow. They put them on. There's a couple of other kind of rental sites. Then you've got your guy that's owned the property for 30 years and he manages it himself. And how you find it, I don't know. It might be a great opportunity, right? Yeah. He's on Craigslist. He's for rent by owner on Zillow. He's for rentbyowner.com, right? We've got all these things.
Yeah.
So there's no one single place to go find rentals, right? Yeah. It's kind of an all-in approach to find what you're looking for as a renter. The other thing that makes it really tough as a renter is there's no standardized, to my knowledge, standardized application process. Generally, every property manager or apartment complex is going to have their own application process.
Yeah.
So what they require may be different. Their background check may be different. Versus when you buy, you can go get a pre-approval from one of our preferred lenders, and we can go shop around, right? I really wish that was the process for renters to be able to have a standardized. I have no criminal background. I make good money. I have good credit, right? And be able to show that. That's just not how it's done. No. I think secretly, it's a pretty good revenue generator for them. So that's the reality. Yeah,
Definitely.
That's my belief. So, it may cost $25 for the background check and you're paying $75 a person or something like that. So
yeah, it's like $75 for an application fee and then the background checks and then the deposit and then the admin fee. Right. It's just like.
So you're getting feed on both things.
Yeah.
Right? So, now when you're buying, and this is kind of another thing to talk about, when you're buying, you do have closing costs, right? When you purchase, you got a mortgage, you're going to have some closing costs. And these are some of the fixed costs I was talking about that if you sell the next year, you just can't really recoup these because there's a cost of obtaining a mortgage, right? You're going to pay an origination fee. You're going to pay a tax on the loan. You're going to pay a tax on they call them doc stamps. So there's some fixed costs that go into purchasing. You're going to have an inspection that's going to run, $400 or $500. You're going to, you have to, some of the costs of purchasing are prepaid. So you're going to prepay a lot of your insurance. You're going to prepay some interest. You're going to prepay community fees or HOA fees potentially.
Are those costs roughly the same, or does it just depend on the house? Like, is it the more expensive of the house, or?
Yeah, a lot of these things are fixed costs, but generally speaking, I estimate about 3 to 3.5%
Got it.
of your purchase to be closing costs,
Okay,
right? Plus down payment.
right.
So if you're saying I'm saving up to have a 10% down payment, plan for 13%,
Got it.
right?
Yeah.
Because there's just some fixed costs there you can't get around.
Okay, not like,
The only way to account for that would be to be negotiating the seller to pay some of your closing costs.
Mhm.
That's a whole nother discussion, and it's been very hard to pull off in this market.
okay,
Because effectively, when you do that, you're rolling some of those costs into your mortgage. Is
Right.
essentially what you're doing, right? They're agreeing to a price. Maybe you increase the price by 3% and then roll it back. It creates additional challenges to negotiate, but it's possible. So all this to say, hopefully this is some good stuff to talk about.
yeah,
Get your wheels turning. Would love to have this conversation, and talk about how it could impact you over the coming years from a, building wealth scenario,
Yeah.
and also getting you in a place where you can make it your own. I think that's the other, kind of emotional component is it's mine. I can do what I want with it, right? Versus feeling like you're borrowing it from somebody else.
yeah, and you can't wreck anything, you don't pay any extra fees when you're leaving, so
Right.
definitely,
Yeah.
one day, hopefully
Yeah.
within the next year or so, I'll be on the buying train.
We'll get you there.
Sweet,
Cool.
thank you.
You got it. Thanks.